Disclaimer. This memoir is a work of non-fiction based on the author's personal experiences. While the events described are rooted in reality, certain details, including dates, locations, and specific identifiers, have been altered to protect the privacy of individuals' privacy and address potential legal concerns. The narrative is intended to reflect the author's journey and the broader systemic issues rather than serve as an accurate historical record. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or natural events is coincidental. The views and opinions expressed in this book are those of the author and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any organizations or institutions mentioned. Introduction. Life's journey is a tumultuous odyssey, marked by unexpected twists and profound challenges that test our character. This memoir charts a profoundly personal chapter of my life, defined by a struggle against systemic injustice that sought to silence my voice and overshadow my spirit. What began with hopeful aspirations and dreams of a promising future soon unraveled into a relentless storm of miscommunication, doubt, and conflict. As the serene waters of my relationships grew tumultuous, I sought refuge in the systems meant to uphold justice and protect families, only to find my voice marginalized and my truth overshadowed by assumptions and biases. In my quest for resolution, I faced the stark reality that my pleas often fell on deaf ears. The battles were not just legal but deeply emotional, testing my resilience and faith in a system that seemed indifferent to my plight. Despite the overwhelming odds and persistent skepticism, my unwavering love for my child became my beacon of hope, guiding me through the darkest moments. This memoir is a testament to my journey through a fractured system, illustrating the profound impact of love and perseverance in the quest for justice. It is a narrative of enduring spirit, where each page reflects the struggle to reclaim truth amidst adversity. As you delve into these pages, you will witness the trials of navigating an unjust system and the unyielding hope that fuels the fight for a better future, a future where love, integrity, and truth triumph over systemic flaws and personal despair. Chapter 1. 2015. The beginning. 2015 is a significant milestone in the tapestry of my life, where the threads of fate began weaving a new pattern. Having devoted considerable time to self-improvement and introspection, I found myself ready to embark on a new chapter that would unfold alongside the heart of another, as we endeavored to construct a future brimming with promise. The moment I met her, I was captivated by her effervescent spirit and unwavering optimism. She possessed an uncanny ability to speak candidly about her past, including the intricacies of previous relationships, while exuding an unmistakable determination to forge ahead. Her outlook on life was a breath of fresh air, and I eagerly embraced the opportunity to delve deeper into her world. Our connection blossomed with zeal in those initial days, fueled by an intangible force that seemed to bridge the gap between us effortlessly. Before long, our lives intertwined so tightly that she decided to move in with me. This transition, while exhilarating, was challenging. Yet, amidst the trials that surfaced, I endeavored to remain patient and supportive as she wrestled with her battles, striving to reclaim control over her health. Crafting a harmonious sanctuary together became my paramount objective, shouldering the responsibilities of daily chores and tending to the administrative tasks of our shared existence. I endeavored to create an environment where we could thrive. Her struggle to maintain tidiness and her frequent bouts of illness became recurring themes. Still, I endeavored to be understanding, believing time and familiarity would grant her the confidence to take the initiative. While most days brought harmony, we were not immune to the occasional disputes that arise when two lives merge. Weariness sometimes consumed me, and I yearned for more excellent assistance in managing our household affairs. Likewise, she expressed her discontent, often chastising me for my perceived sloppiness or laziness. In retrospect, it became evident that mastering the art of open communication and finding a middle ground were skills we both needed to cultivate. Reflecting upon that inaugural year of coexistence, I acknowledged the tapestry of experiences that adorned our path. Amidst the undulations of triumph and tribulation, we celebrated our shared victories while simultaneously navigating the choppy waters of adjustment. Still, hope flickered within me, igniting an unwavering belief that our relationship possessed an intrinsic potential for growth and transformation. The future shimmered with endless possibilities, and I embraced them wholeheartedly. While this chapter of my life presented its fair share of challenges, it simultaneously offered an abundance of fresh beginnings. I dedicated myself to constructing a haven where happiness would thrive, where the strains of our union would harmonize into a harmonious symphony of shared dreams and aspirations. Though far from perfect, I clung to the iridescent threads of optimism, painting the canvas of our partnership with vibrant hues of hope. The first year together merely set the stage for a riveting journey ahead, destined to be extraordinary. Chapter 2, 2016, Growing Pains. As the calendar turned to 2016, we settled in our first shared rental home. On the surface, life appeared to be beginning to align its scattered fragments into a cohesive whole. Yet, the reality of cohabitation brought forth an entirely new set of challenges that tested the very foundations of our relationship. To sustain our humble abode and meet the demands of daily life, I toiled away for long hours, shouldering the weight of our financial responsibilities. Fatigue clung to my weary bones as I yearned for a helping hand in maintaining our living space. The clutter that seemed to accumulate effortlessly became a source of contention, as I quietly wished for her to recognize her contributions to the disarray that surrounded us. Once sporadic interludes, arguments began to frequent the landscape of our shared existence. The burden of preserving harmony rested heavily upon my weary shoulders, while her relentless criticisms pierced my fragile self-esteem like barbs. She scolded me for perceived slothfulness or carelessness, her words etching deep wounds upon my spirit. Desperate to appease her, I made sacrifices, forsaking the social media account she deemed unworthy of our relationship. But even this act failed to satiate her insatiable appetite for dissatisfaction. Petty disagreements became the soundtrack of our days, harmonizing with her ceaseless laments about her appearance, health, and emotions' tempestuous nature. With unwavering resolve, I endeavored to offer patience and steadfast support, despite the heavy toll the negativity exacted upon my emotional well-being. In retrospect, it becomes evident that we both needed to improve in effective communication. I perhaps held unrealistic expectations of unwavering compromise from her, while she, in turn, was prone to unleashing fierce storms over the most trivial matters. We engaged in frequent bickering, yet our exchanges lacked the constructive dialogue necessary for growth and understanding. Amidst the turbulence that often engulfed us, there were fleeting moments of tenderness that shimmered like fragile stars in the night sky. Yet the prevailing sentiment was a disheartening struggle as we grappled to adjust to the daily unyielding demands of living together. What had initially held the allure of excitement now seemed to transform into a draining experience, an undeniable testament to the complexity of merging two lives into a seamless union. Nonetheless, within the depths of my being, hope persevered. I clung tenaciously to the belief that time would nurture our growth and that our shared journey held the potential for greater understanding and improved communication. Though the path we tread was far from smooth, the challenges and obstacles we faced were merely an inherent aspect of the natural adjustment period that accompanies any union. Thus, I remained cautiously optimistic, convinced we were on an upward trajectory, destined to conquer the tempestuous sea together. Chapter 3, 2017, A Tumultuous Year. The dawning of 2017 brought with it a beacon of hope and anticipation as we eagerly awaited the arrival of our first child. This should have been a time of joy and excitement, yet our lives were shrouded in perpetual discord and unrest. The strain we carried manifested itself in relentless arguments that seemed to infiltrate every corner of our existence. The pregnancy, a milestone of profound significance, unfolded against a backdrop of physical torment and anguish for my partner. Her health deteriorated, subjecting her to constant waves of debilitating nausea and unrelenting bouts of vomiting. My heart ached as I witnessed her suffering, and I endeavored to provide unwavering support. However, the weight of our financial obligations forced me to work long hours, leaving me utterly depleted and stretched thin. Seeking stability, we decided to move in with my parents, initially believing it would be a temporary arrangement. Little did we anticipate the tumult that awaited us within those walls. The darkness of my parents' battle with alcoholism cast a heavy shadow upon our shared living space, instigating frequent arguments and exacerbating the already mounting stress. The harmonious rapport that had initially blossomed between my partner and my parents began to wither away as fissures in their relationship began to surface. As our paths diverged, petty arguments became the unwelcome guests that overstayed their welcome in our lives. In moments of respite from the ceaseless bickering, I sought solace in the world of video games, yearning for fleeting moments of escape. Regrettably, this escape only stoked the fires of discord as my partner grew resentful of the brief respites I sought. To minimize further conflict, I periodically deactivated my social media accounts, recognizing their potential to exacerbate our fragile state during heated disagreements. As the year ended, the once invisible fissures in the foundation of our relationship expanded into gaping chasms. Trust, a pillar upon which love thrives, was rapidly eroding. Still, hope flickered within me as I clung to the unwavering conviction that we could salvage what remained of our bond. Our precious son, the embodiment of our shared dreams, deserved the love and stability of two happy and unified parents. It was a determination born out of an unwavering sense of responsibility. For his sake, I remained steadfast in my resolve to make our union work. The year 2017, marked by its tumultuous nature, had etched itself indelibly upon our lives. The strife echoes reverberated through the corridors of our existence, leaving no facet untouched. Yet within my heart, hope continued to persist, resilient against the storms surrounding us. The path ahead remained uncertain, obscured by the fog of uncertainty. Still, I remained resolute, for within the depths of my soul, I cherished a flickering flame of optimism that whispered of the possibility of redemption and renewal. Chapter 4, 2018. A pivotal year. In the early days of 2018, the universe bestowed upon us the gift of our beloved son. The moment I held him in my arms for the first time, a profound surge of love and purpose coursed through my veins. It was a transformative experience, a testament to the awe-inspiring beauty of new parenthood. Yet, as the euphoria settled, the weight of responsibility descended upon our weary shoulders. Sleepless nights became the norm as we navigated the uncharted waters of caring for a newborn. The exhaustion wore us down, testing our resilience. My partner, grappling with the physical toll of postpartum recovery and the overwhelming adjustment to the role of motherhood, found herself in the throes of an emotional whirlwind. I yearned to alleviate her burdens, to offer solace and support, but it seemed that my efforts fell short, forever wanting. Amidst the trials that defined the year, a glimmer of hope shone through as we purchased our first home together. Although it may not have been the idyllic location of our dreams, it proved to be a prudent choice for the health and well-being of our young son. The proximity to her family meant that childcare arrangements would be convenient. However, as reality often unveils its unpredictable nature, the flaws of relying on others for such a crucial responsibility soon revealed themselves. The acquisition of our new home ushered in a newfound sense of independence, but with it came a fresh wave of financial burdens. The need to furnish and equip our humble abode strained our resources, leaving us financially strapped. The mounting expenses swiftly depleted the savings I had diligently accumulated through the hard work of our impending wedding. Though a family had initially helped, it never fully materialized, compounding the strain on our fragile financial state. Planning our wedding emerged as an unwelcome source of tension and conflict. My preferences and desires were often relegated to the periphery, eclipsed by the weight of her family's expectations and traditions. While endeavoring to remain understanding, my persistent disregard for my wishes made me uneasy. The guest list became another battleground, with limited input permitted on my part. Each concession I made to preserve harmony merely kindled the flames of resentment, fueling the cycle of arguments that plagued our relationship. Amidst the backdrop of our mounting struggles, concerns for our son's safety and well-being echoed through the chambers of my mind. The urgency of childproofing and removing potential hazards seemed to elude her, further exacerbating my growing unease. Frustrated by her dismissive attitude, I resorted to social media polls, seeking external validation for my worries when she refused to lend an ear. The dismissiveness extended beyond our son's welfare, as my health issues were relegated to the realms of insignificance, deepening the chasm of grievances. As the year ended, the once faint wedge between us had morphed into a formidable chasm. The seeds of mistrust had taken root, permeating every interaction. Our conflicts escalated, casting a dark shadow over the fragile remnants of our bond. Despite the deteriorating state of our relationship, I found myself unable to walk away. The weight of everything I had worked so diligently to build, our home, the wedding, the shared moments with our beloved son, loomed over me, threatening to crumble if I were to abandon it all. Resolute, I clung to the fading embers of hope, ignoring the whispering voice that warned of futility. I was determined to keep trying, driven by a profound sense of responsibility. Our innocent son, deserving of love, became my steadfast anchor in the stormy seas of uncertainty. Chapter 5, 2019. The breaking point. If the previous year had strained the fragile fabric of our relationship, the arrival of 2019 would shatter it into irreparable fragments. The year we commenced on treacherous ground, burdened by the unresolved tensions stemming from the tumultuous wedding planning and the strains of our new home. Despite having a young child relying on us, the foundation upon which our family stood was marred by fractures and fissures. As the demands of motherhood eclipsed her career aspirations, the mounting frustrations and unfulfilled ambitions cast a shadow upon her spirit. Meanwhile, my relentless pursuit of financial stability led me to toil away long hours providing for our family's needs, but simultaneously creating a cavernous divide between us. We became mere ships passing in the night, coexisting in a disjointed harmony, caring for our son in fragmented shifts, while genuine communication slipped through the cracks of our strained existence. The once infrequent arguments grew into an explosive symphony of hostility and hatred. The resonance of her screams left me trembling, questioning her self-control and fearing for the fragile threads of her sanity. Moments of physical outbursts solidified my resolve, whispering painful truths that could no longer be ignored. It was time to end the relationship. The weight of that decision pressed upon my soul, threatening to dismantle the edifice of everything I had fought so diligently to build. In a final act of desperation, I poured my heart onto the pages of a letter, meticulously detailing my emotions and hopes that communication could resurrect our shattered bond. Yet my words fell upon deaf ears, lost in the void of indifference, never eliciting the response my heart yearned for. As the ink dried on the paper, I witnessed her swift immersion into new romantic interests, an undeniable testament to her readiness to move forward. At the same time, I was left grappling with the remnants of a broken connection. The final blow came when she mustered the courage to walk away from the wreckage of our relationship. In a twisted bid to maintain control, she wielded our son as a bargaining chip, threatening to withhold his presence from my life. The mere suggestion of such manipulation propelled me to seek outside intervention, resulting in authorities' involvement. However, their intervention proved misguided, as they inadvertently enabled her coercive tactics, failing to recognize the true nature of the abuse that plagued our relationship. In a single year, my once familiar life underwent an irreversible metamorphosis, transforming into an unrecognizable landscape of pain and despair. The pillars of my relationship crumbled beneath the weight of shattered dreams and broken promises. The tendrils of a tarnished reputation wrapped around my existence, while the silencing grip of fear stifled my voice, trapping the truth within the recesses of my soul. It became painfully evident that the system designed to protect and deliver justice had failed me when I needed it most. With every flicker of hope extinguished, the despair settled in. I had learned that in the grand tapestry of life, the truth often withers in the face of adversity, rendering it impotent and inconsequential. Chapter 6, 2020. Alone in the dark. 2020 arrived like an endless winter night, shrouded in bleakness and despair. Just before the holiday season, my son was taken away from me, and my heart shattered into countless shards of anguish. Desperation consumed me as I pleaded to see him, but my pleas were met with resounding silence. The empty rooms of my home echoed with memories, his toys gathering dust as a painful reminder of his absence. I reached out tirelessly, willing to compromise, to find a way to share custody and maintain a relationship with my son. However, the power dynamics had shifted, and she now held the reins of his life, denying me access at every turn. Days bled into weeks without the presence of my beloved child, and the weight of the injustice gnawed at my soul like an insatiable hunger. Even mediation, a beacon of hope for resolution, failed to offer any respite from the torment that plagued my heart. Dark thoughts began to creep into my mind as depression sank its talons deep into my spirit. Yet through despair, I continued fighting, clinging tenaciously to the flickering flame of hope that we would be reunited again. The authorities, however, offered me little assistance, dismissing my pleas and disregarding the agony that engulfed my soul. Their indifference became violence of its own, compounding the weight of the injustice that gripped my life. But then, as winter's icy grip began to thaw, a glimmer of light pierced through the clouds of desolation. We managed to reconcile, if only for a fleeting moment, setting aside the pain of the past and embracing the possibility of a fresh start. The euphoria of holding my son in my arms once more was a balm to my wounded heart. However, like a relentless adversary, the darkness soon returned as baseless accusations were hurled my way, robbing me of my freedom and voice. The court proceedings favored her narrative, while my truth remained unspoken, unheard, and disregarded. The summer months drifted by, marked by isolation and a fractured family. Her malice extended into the digital realm, where online harassment and defamation became her chosen weapons, casting shadows over any attempts I made to move forward. As the leaves changed hues, a parcel arrived addressed in someone else's hand. It held within it a painful reminder that my son continued to celebrate milestones. Without me, each occasion further fueling the depths of my sorrow. The pain of this absence cut more profound than any lie told or charge brought against me, piercing the very core of my being. As winter descended again, a sense of resignation settled upon me, its weight pressing down my weary shoulders. The fight within me had waned, and I was trapped in a stagnant stillness, my life no longer my own. Her wrath had triumphed, my only crime being my unwavering love for the son I held dear, and realizing that the law often favored mothers, no matter how unjust the circumstances, left me feeling utterly defeated. The year 2020 stretched before me, an endless darkness enveloping my existence. My light had been eclipsed, and the prospect of escape seemed unattainable. I sank deeper into the embrace of despair, my spirit weighed down by the burdens of my shattered life. She had stripped me of everything that mattered, my child, my voice, my autonomy. Yet, amidst the bleakness, two steadfast elements remained unyielding, my love for my son and the enduring memories we had forged. Together, I held on to the hope that one day he would seek the truth, and I would be here, waiting patiently in the darkness, ready to embrace him with open arms. 6.1 When it fell apart. The day it all fell apart remains etched in my mind like a haunting melody playing an endless loop. What began as a seemingly innocuous disagreement, a tiny spark in the vast expanse of our relationship, quickly spiraled into something far more ominous, setting into motion a chain of events that would forever alter the trajectory of our lives. In the aftermath of that fateful day, engulfed by an overwhelming sense of despair, I sought solace and guidance from support groups and charities. Their warm embrace and unwavering encouragement became my lifeline, infusing me with the strength to persevere in the face of relentless adversity. Though they couldn't rewrite the past or undo the pain, their presence reminded me that I was not alone in my struggle. Together, we held on to the collective hope that one day the shattered pieces of our lives would be mended and justice would prevail. Yet, despite my relentless efforts and emotional pleas, my child remained cruelly withheld from me, denied my fundamental rights as a parent. I felt the deep anguish of separation like a relentless ache in my heart. Her family, acting as gatekeepers, severed all contact, leaving me stranded on the periphery of my own child's life. Each passing day apart deepened the chasm of pain, and I was left grappling with the devastating weight of a loss beyond measure. Determined to bridge the divide, I explored every conceivable avenue, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of legal and emotional battles. With unwavering patience and understanding, I extended countless olive branches, hoping to foster a sense of reconciliation and pave a path towards healing. Yet time and time again, my offerings were met with resounding rejection, my words and actions twisted and distorted, wielded against me as weapons in an unrelenting campaign of control. The consequences of my desperate pursuit to be reunited with my child were dire: arrested, alienated, and subjected to a malicious onslaught of slander. I felt the total weight of a system that seemed intent on silencing my voice and eradicating my presence. In the darkest crevices of my mind, where despair took hold, thoughts veered toward the precipice of hopelessness. Yet even in the depths of despair, my child remained my guiding light, an unwavering beacon that kept me steadfast and determined to weather the storm that raged around us. Deep within my core, I clung to the unassailable truth that our bond transcended mere physical proximity or the passage of time. It was an unbreakable thread woven through the very fabric of our existence, resilient against the forces that sought to sever it. I made an unwavering vow to myself and my child, a solemn promise that I would traverse the flames of adversity, enduring any trial ahead, to hold him again in my arms. No matter how treacherous the road or seemingly impossible the obstacles were, my voice would not be silenced until I reclaimed what mattered most, the precious gift of my beloved child's presence. Even as the authorities appeared aligned against me, their eyes veiled by a distorted lens that distorted my truth, I refused to relinquish my faith in the inherent power of justice. Justice, I knew, was not a fleeting notion subject to the whims of circumstance or the biases of the system. It was an indomitable force, requiring only unwavering resolve and the relentless pursuit of truth. As I braced myself for the challenges that lay ahead, I vowed to speak my truth unapologetically, to illuminate the path with the unwavering strength of my voice, until the day arrived when I would finally be reunited with the cherished soul who had forever imprinted upon my heart my beloved child. 6.2. The Turning Point. The day I received the safeguarding letter was the pivotal moment when the tides of my journey began to shift. As I gingerly unfolded its pages and absorbed its contents, a surge of emotions coursed through my veins: sadness, frustration, and an overwhelming sense of helplessness. Sadness enveloped me as I confronted the stark reality of how severely my relationship with the CO parent had deteriorated. It was a painful realization that an insurmountable gulf of hurt and mistrust had eclipsed our once golden bond. How had we arrived at this point? It seemed inconceivable that the love we once cherished had transformed into such profound disillusionment. We were adrift in a sea of broken promises and shattered dreams, struggling to find a common ground that now seemed irretrievably lost. Frustration gnawed at my core as I grappled with the incomplete narrative dominating the proceedings. Well-meaning professionals tasked with untangling the intricate threads of our complex story presented a version of events that felt woefully one-sided. The crucial context that would have shed light on the complexities of our relationship was conspicuously absent, leaving a void that yearned to be filled. I longed for the opportunity to share my recollections in their entirety, to provide a more comprehensive account that would illuminate the truth hidden beneath the surface. Still, the time for that had not yet come. Above all, helplessness clutched at my soul with an iron grip. Despite my unwavering efforts to navigate the treacherous terrain of an impossible situation with care and patience, it often felt as though my hands were bound, my rights overlooked. The spectre of powerlessness loomed large, threatening to sever the bond that mattered most, the sacred connection between parent and child. The thought of losing touch with that invaluable relationship haunted me, eclipsing all other fears. In response to this tangled web of emotions, I poured my jumbled thoughts into a position statement, an opportunity to set the record straight where I could, to voice the truths that the prevailing narrative had overshadowed. With deliberate care, I trod the path of objectivity, sticking to the unadorned facts as I saw them. My intent was never to cast blame or point fingers, but rather to weave a fuller tapestry that depicted me as the caring and responsible parent I knew myself to be. Above all else, my child's well-being remained the lodestar guiding my every thought and action. Yet the road ahead remained uncertain, shrouded in shadows of doubt and frustration. I yearned for the day when the heat of anger and resentment would dissipate, when cooler heads would prevail, and we could set aside our differences to pursue a shared goal, co-parenting in a spirit of understanding and cooperation. However, for the time being, all I could do was present my case with unwavering resolve, trusting that the truth, like an indomitable force, would ultimately emerge victorious. If I stayed patient and maintained a sense of calm amidst the storm, I held steadfast faith that justice would prevail. But my hopes for justice were dashed when my complaint to the family support services failed to yield the relief I sought. Pouring my heart out in painstaking detail, I meticulously outlined how I felt mistreated and misunderstood. To my dismay, the resulting safeguarding report contained numerous inaccuracies and overlooked my attempts to correct them. The process felt dishearteningly one-sided, leaving me grappling with the disquieting realization that my voice was being silenced and my concerns were falling on deaf ears. The most profound blow came when the family support services stated that my arrangements with my son should not be reinstated until the completion of the Section 7 report. By then, months of separation had already passed, and the decision felt unduly punitive. I couldn't fathom how I, who spent time with other children without issue, was deemed a risk to my beloved son. The logic was confounding, and the pain of being kept apart from my child was exacerbated by the sheer senselessness of it all. The family support services' subsequent deadlock letter only compounded my frustration. Once again, my concerns were dismissed or deemed court matters beyond their purview. The perceived bias in their work cast a long shadow over my already tenuous faith in the system. How could I expect a fair hearing when the institution tasked with safeguarding my child's best interests seemed to provide the court with incomplete and partial information? The profound sense of isolation intensified as I realized that no one, it seemed, was willing to listen or honestly care about the profound impact this forced separation was having on my child's well-being. I felt powerless and voiceless, a lone voice shouting into the void as the system, seemingly designed to silence fathers like me, disregarded the injustice that permeated our lives. It was an uphill battle, an agonizing struggle against a system that overlooked the fundamental importance of a father's love and presence in his child's life. Adding to my despair was the strong counsel from my solicitor and barristers to withdraw my complaints with the family support services and the police. They made me realize that these institutions had twisted my narrative to paint me as an argumentative and controlling figure. My genuine attempts to seek help were being manipulated to validate my ex-partner's portrayal of me as abusive. Being in touch with the police was seen not as a cry for justice, but as an act of aggression. The systems designed to protect were now weaponized against me, a bitter irony that left me reeling. As the days unfolded, I found myself caught in a limbo of waiting that tested the limits of my endurance and challenged the flickering embers of hope within me. The Section 7 report became my last beacon of expectation, my final chance at a fair assessment, even as past experiences left me with a lingering wariness. Still, despite the doubts that clouded my vision, I refused to relinquish my commitment to speaking my truth, even when no one wanted to hear it. Deep within me, a fire burned, an unwavering conviction that the truth would ultimately prevail and that the sacred bond between parent and child would be rekindled once more. 6.3. The long road ahead. As I held the Section 7 report, I was apprehensive and disappointed. I knew this was the beginning of a long and arduous journey filled with countless obstacles and uphill battles. The report echoed the frustrations I had harbored all along. My voice, experiences, and truth were still shrouded in a haze of misunderstanding and obscurity. The gaps in the narrative remained unfilled, and the vital context that would have illuminated the complexities of our situation was conspicuously absent. While I yearned to provide the missing pieces of the puzzle, the system's limitations constrained what I could share. Nevertheless, I endeavored to respond to the report in the most comprehensive manner possible. In a painstakingly crafted reply, I meticulously pointed out the inaccuracies and inconsistencies that marred its pages. I questioned why some individuals were allowed to refute allegations while I was denied the same chance. I challenged the selective consideration of the evidence, highlighting the glaring omissions that skewed the overall picture. Above all, I seized this opportunity to reiterate my unwavering truth, that my utmost desire was to rebuild a loving and nurturing relationship with my child. I wanted nothing more than to have the chance to be an active and involved parent, to create cherished memories and celebrate milestones together. Despite the skepticism that seemed to permeate the proceedings, I knew in my heart that my commitment and dedication as a father surpassed any doubts or misconceptions. With every fiber of my being, I clung to the hope that the true story would eventually surface. I yearned for the day when cooler heads would prevail, justice would be served, and the system designed to protect families would not fail mine. It was an ardent plea, an invocation of faith in the principles upon which the legal system was built. My second position statement became a manifesto of my hopes and aspirations. It outlined the tangible outcomes I still longed to achieve, an equitable allocation of time. With my child and a fair and balanced custody arrangement that prioritized the best interests of our little one, I envisioned a future filled with shared experiences and cherished moments, a testament to the power of patience, understanding, and collaboration in finding a positive way forward. Undoubtedly, the road that lay ahead was long and winding. It was strewn with hurdles that threatened to test my resolve and sap my strength. but I solemnly vowed to traverse this path with grace and integrity. I knew I could only hope to navigate the challenges that awaited me through unwavering courage, boundless compassion, and honesty. Although the weight of the journey seemed to burden my every step, I refused to let it break my spirit. With my head held high and my heart aflame with determination, I embraced the belief that a spark of light glimmered deep within the darkness that engulfed me. I was resolute in my conviction that I would emerge from this tumultuous odyssey, ultimately finding solace and retribution and restoring a cherished bond with my beloved child. 6.4 A Glimmer of Hope. Hope ignited as I stepped into the courtroom for our in-person hearing. This time I wasn't alone. I had my barrister by my side, someone who had listened attentively to my story, understood the gravity of the situation, and recognized that my child's safety and well-being were paramount to the court. During our discussions, my barrister emphasized the need to shift the focus away from accusations and instead concentrate on rebuilding trust. He believed that by demonstrating my willingness to cooperate, even in the face of past pain and frustration, we could gradually pave the way for a renewed connection with my child. It would be a journey requiring patience and time, but the possibility of re-establishing a meaningful relationship shimmered on the horizon. Filled with determination, I stood ready to embark on this path of compromise. I was prepared to accept supervised visits, understanding that it was an essential step toward rebuilding the fractured bond between my child and me. The wounds of the past became secondary to creating a hopeful future, no matter how long and winding the road ahead. As the hearing unfolded, there was a palpable sense of positivity in the courtroom. My barrister eloquently presented our collaborative stance, and the court appeared receptive to our proposal. It was a small victory, leading to an agreement on practical next steps to help maintain a connection between my child and me, even amidst our challenges. Reading through the court order afterwards, a wave of hope washed over me. Although the journey ahead remained long and fraught with obstacles, I finally felt a sense of forward momentum. Each passing day brought me closer to reuniting with my child, bridging the gap that had kept us apart for far too long. Undoubtedly, challenges still loomed on the horizon. More assessments, scrutiny of my parenting abilities, and personal questions lay ahead. However, I confronted them with unwavering courage and integrity, knowing that honesty was my greatest ally. I was prepared to do whatever it took, attending courses, undergoing evaluations, embracing supervised visits, because my focus had shifted from the difficulties of the terrain to the destination that awaited me. No matter how long this arduous journey stretched, I was determined to walk every step. No matter how steep the mountain appeared, I would summon the strength to climb it. And no matter how faint my voice may have seemed at times, I vowed never to cease advocating for a reunion with my beloved child. With hope as my guiding light, I embarked on this chapter of the journey with an unwavering commitment to healing, growth, and restoring a bond that should have never been severed. Though the path ahead remained uncertain, the glimmer of hope within me burned brighter than ever, propelling me forward with renewed determination and an unwavering belief that love and justice would ultimately prevail. 6.5 Testing my resolve. The day of the psychological assessment arrived, and I braced myself for the scrutiny ahead. I knew that my fitness as a parent would be put under a microscope, every aspect of my being examined. This was my opportunity to prove myself, to demonstrate my unwavering dedication to my child, even though the questions pierced deep into my soul. To remain composed, I centered my thoughts on what truly mattered, the well-being and happiness of my child. The time we had lost together weighed heavily on my heart, fueling my determination to overcome any obstacles that stood in our way. I yearned for the day when I could hold my child in my arms again, to feel their warmth and hear their laughter fill the air. As the assessor delved into the depths of my inner world, their questions probed sensitive and personal areas. I bared my soul, shedding light on my mental state and emotional struggles. There were no secrets held back, no masks worn. I knew my honesty would be a testament to my integrity and would ultimately reveal my love and commitment to my child. I had nothing to hide. Yet, despite my unwavering resolve, the process tested the very core of my being. Once again, false accusations were levied against me, threatening to undermine my patience and composure. In those moments, I could feel my spirit falter, the weight of frustration and injustice bearing upon me. But I refused to yield. I steeled myself, drawing strength from the image of my child's sweet face, their innocent eyes filling my mind. This battle was not about me. It was for them, for our precious bond. I vowed to walk through fire and brimstone if it meant having one more day together. No matter how intimate or pointed the questions, I resolved to face them with unwavering courage, poise, and sincerity. Each inquiry was met with a sincere desire to provide a clear and genuine account of my character, love, and unwavering commitment to my child. I had an unshakable faith that, in the end, the truth would prevail. The flames of adversity could not diminish the blazing fire of the deep-seated longing within my heart, to reunite with my beloved child and create a future filled with love, joy, and shared memories. Though the road ahead remained long and uncertain, I hoped this assessment would prove my fitness as a father. It was my chance to lay to rest any doubts and to present a comprehensive understanding of my character and capabilities. I yearned for the day when the insights gleaned from this assessment would pave the way for the reunification I longed for, to hold my child close once more, to feel their tiny hand in mine, and to create new cherished memories together. Until that day arrived, I resolved to endure whatever storms may come my way. The trials and tribulations that lay ahead were but temporary hurdles in the grand tapestry of our lives. I drew strength from the boundless love I held for my child, knowing that it would provide me with the resilience and fortitude needed to weather any challenges that came our way. No matter how dark the night may be, the love that guided me would shine as a beacon, illuminating the path toward the day when we would be reunited, embracing a future filled with boundless love and unwavering devotion. Chapter 7, 2021. The battle continues. As 2021 unfolded, it brought a familiar weight, a burden carried through court orders and legal correspondence that flooded my mailbox incessantly. Wearied by the ceaseless litigation, I searched for a glimmer of hope, yearning for the day when my voice would finally break through the walls of indifference. With each new court order, I felt the weight of additional restrictions and heightened scrutiny. It seemed that the system held an inherent mistrust in me as a father, casting doubt on my ability to nurture and care for my child. The suffocating grip of judgment stifled my longing for simple moments with my son, moments free from the pervasive gaze of judgment and suspicion. The cold, impersonal language of the legal documents failed to capture the depth of the loss I experienced every day. Simultaneously, the appointment of a guardian felt like just another box-checking exercise, an empty gesture lacking genuine empathy and understanding. How often had I poured out my heart, only to be met with dismissiveness and skepticism? The letter from the investigating police officer echoed this sentiment of apathy, further eroding my faith in a system that seemed more concerned with bureaucratic formalities than with truly comprehending my reality. Yet, despite the overwhelming obstacles, I clung to the belief that sharing my perspective could penetrate the callous narrative woven around me. Although my voice trembled with fear and uncertainty, I persisted, meticulously dismantling the inconsistencies I encountered, illuminating the missing truths I only held. Every word I wrote and every argument I presented was an act of defiance against the prevailing assumptions and preconceptions. The journey stretched out before me, seemingly unending, and the battle felt steep and unrelenting. With each step I took, I carried the image of my son's face, a beacon of love guiding me through the darkest moments. In the face of doubt and indifference, I whispered the truth, planting seeds of authenticity where assumptions had taken root. I allowed my vision to extend beyond the present, envisioning a future where the division that plagued us would be replaced by reconciliation, a time when we would look back on this chapter of our lives with a renewed sense of unity and understanding. Until that day arrived, I refused to surrender hope. Even as my voice quivered and faltered, threatened to be silenced, and, buried beneath the weight of injustice, I vowed to persist. I turned the key to empathy again and again, refusing to let the flame of my spirit be extinguished. The door may remain locked for now, but I held on to the unwavering conviction that someday it would swing open, ushering in a new chapter of truth and compassion. My voice may shake, but it would not be buried. It would rise above the noise, demanding to be heard and justice for the bond between a father and his beloved child. 7.1. The assessment. Sitting across from the psychologist, I clung to the hope that this evaluation would finally allow my voice to be heard. Opening myself up, I bore the scars of my childhood wounds, the depths of my struggles, and the raw pain that had haunted me for far too long. I poured out my heart, recounting the relentless abuse, the grueling court battles, and the unbearable separation from my beloved son. As I searched the psychologist's face, yearning for a glimmer of understanding, I encountered only clinical detachment. His questions probed for flaws, focusing on themes of control, anger, and mental instability. With each inquiry, my heart sank deeper, realizing that this was not a space of empathy or compassion, but rather one of judgment. The subsequent report, cold and methodical, served as a confirmation of my worst fears. It laid out a superficial analysis of a person the psychologist barely knew, drawing ominous connections to my upbringing and warning of concerning emotional undercurrents. It cast doubts upon my ability to regulate my emotions, painting me as resistant, volatile, and incapable of seeing perspectives other than mine. The weight of profound mischaracterization and misunderstanding settled upon me, squeezing my spirit. The psychologist had reduced the entirety of my being to nothing more than the sum of my external behaviors, disregarding the intricate complexities of my inner world. Blinded to the enduring effects of the abuse and the pervasive injustice that had shaped my reactions, he saw me solely as the problem to be fixed. But within the depths of my being, my voice reverberated, resolute and unwavering. I refused to accept this skewed narrative that sought to define me. Yes, I bore the wounds of my past, but they do not define me. Loneliness may have seeped into my soul, but it did not render me unstable. I fought tirelessly to be heard, to regain what was unjustly taken from me. the chance to love and nurture my flesh and blood. One report, no matter how authoritative or damning, could not shatter the truth that burned within me. I refused to be confined to the confines of their preconceived notions. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes of assumption, I vowed to embrace my truth and reclaim my identity. They could attempt to dim my light, but I knew deep in my soul that it would never be extinguished. My voice, resilience, and unwavering love for my child would guide me through this labyrinth of injustice, lighting the path toward a future where truth and understanding prevail. 7.2. At odds. The approaching hearing brought a flurry of emotions and a stack of position statements. As I read my ex-partner's words, frustration welled up within me once more. Her distorted version of events painted me as the villain yet again. She weaved tales of abuse I never inflicted, labeling my desperate attempts at connection as harassment, and unjustly deemed me dangerous despite professionals finding no evidence of such a risk. In my statement, I pleaded with the court to finally hear me, to recognize the false allegations and the coercive control I had endured. I asked only for a fair chance to rebuild the shattered relationship with my son, a relationship that had been unjustly severed. Deep within my heart, I knew that if they would drop their assumptions and truly see me, they would understand that I posed no threat to anyone. As always, the Guardian's report frustrated me to no end. Supposedly written in my son's best interest, it echoed the same tired narrative of doubt and condemnation. It reprimanded and questioned me, placing the worst possible interpretation of my actions. It pained me to see that someone entrusted with protecting my child's welfare could show so little concern for preserving his bond with his father. As I read their portrayals of my character, the chasm between our perceptions grew ever wider. My truth, distorted beyond recognition, seemed lost in the echoing halls of whispers. The exhaustion and deflation accompanying my relentless fight to be heard weighed heavily upon me. Anxiety churned within me as the hearing drew closer. I knew I would be met with the usual skepticism and resistance, but I also knew that peace could never grow from a foundation of accusation. In the face of adversity, I had to remain steadfast in my integrity, resisting the urge to lash out. It was only through unwavering conviction that my voice could transcend this divide. For the sake of my son, I clung to faith that someday the truth would prevail. I understood the power of my voice, the light it could cast upon the darkness of misunderstanding. The path ahead was arduous and uncertain, but I resolved to stay the course, trusting my conviction's strength. Though weary and battered, I refused to let my light be dimmed. I would navigate this treacherous terrain with unwavering determination, believing that justice would ultimately prevail. For the love of my son, I would continue to shine my light, holding steadfast in the hope that one day understanding would bridge the chasm and reunite us as a family. 7.3. The hearing. The day of the long-awaited hearing had finally arrived. As I read through my barrister's notes, I couldn't help but notice how the focus seemed to center around my compliance with various conditions. Therapy, testing, and even censoring my social media. It felt as though my deeper truth, the profound impact of the injustice I had endured, was rendered irrelevant. Within the confines of the legal proceedings, the court order that followed, while granting me some contact with my son, was littered with numerous conditions and restrictions. I swallowed my frustration, recognizing that I would continue to hold on to my truth even if no one else fully heard or understood me. A truth that burned within me fueled my determination to navigate these barriers and keep my son in my arms again. If nodding through this charade brought me even one step closer to him, I would endure it. My solicitor's letter outlined the following steps on this challenging journey: more assessments, scrutiny of my flaws, and more hurdles to overcome. Yet within the words, I clung to the glimmer of hope that these steps would eventually lead me back to my beloved boy. With each passing day, I meditated on the image of his radiant smile, allowing it to cast out the noise and doubts that threatened to drown me. This was not the justice I had dreamed of, but I recognized it as progress, albeit imperfect and marred by conditions. I held on to the belief that even through the cracks in the system, my light could still shine and reach my son's face once more. I understood it would require patience, perseverance, and a steadfast commitment to correcting the misconceptions that had overshadowed my character. Through these small steps, one corrected misconception at a time, I knew our journey toward healing and wholeness could begin. I trusted that this legal machine's slow and intricate workings could, over time, be guided towards a path of greater empathy and humanity. With unwavering faith in the power of my voice and the strength of my convictions, I resolved to continue walking this arduous path, bearing the weight of the conditions and limitations placed upon me. Deep within my heart, I knew my love for my son and unwavering dedication to restoring our bond would guide me through the darkness. I would not waver, for I believed the truth would prevail someday, and our voices would lead us toward the reunification and healing we desperately sought. 7.4. Jumping through hoops. The assessments and requirements continued to stack up, forming an unyielding gauntlet I had to navigate to have any semblance of contact with my son. The updated contact proposal from the Guardian still brimmed with suspicion, casting doubt on my ability to regulate my emotions. It was disheartening to feel so fundamentally misunderstood. In response to the Guardian's proposal, the psychologist's letter arrived, laden with even more conditions and stipulations. I read the words with a sinking feeling in my chest. According to their demands, I would only be permitted to see my son once I completed therapy and parenting classes. The weight of the delay felt crushing, and I couldn't help but wonder how long they intended to draw out this process. With a sense of resignation, I obediently attended the CO parenting class, hoping my compliance would serve as a testament to my willingness to cooperate. However, as I sat through the lectures on prioritizing the child's well-being, their words rang hollow in my ears. How could I genuinely prioritize my child when I had been forcibly separated from him for an agonizingly long time? The results of the alcohol test, where I had to have a portion of my hair removed, unsurprisingly, revealed no cause for concern. I had been truthful from the beginning, and the clean results only validated what I had already asserted. Yet, it seemed as though they were determined to find any reason to delay further and exert control over our contact. Finally, the court order arrived, granting me supervised visitation. Though I rejoiced at the prospect of reuniting with my son, a lingering sadness clouded my heart even under watchful eyes. This prolonged and forced distance had strained the deep bond we once shared. I yearned to restore the connection to its former warmth and intimacy. Throughout this arduous journey, it felt as though no one truly grasped the situation's urgency or the profound injustice that had befallen us. Yet, I buried my frustration, resolving to play the expected part. If I kept my head down and jumped through every hoop presented before me, perhaps the obstacles would begin to crumble and fall away. Though often silenced and disregarded, my voice possessed a quiet strength that could gradually erode their doubts, much like water smoothing a stone. With unwavering determination, I would persevere, believing that someday the truth would break through the barriers and illuminate the path to justice and reunification. 7.5 back to square one. The latest report from the Guardian landed on my desk with a resounding thud, heavy with the weight of their unyielding skepticism. Once again, they doubted my progress and insisted that therapy remain incomplete, trapping me in a never-ending cycle of assessments and amendments. Each arduous step forward felt futile in their eyes. With a fire burning in my chest, I crafted my reply, protesting the endless paper chase that seemed to delay the moment I could finally hold my son in my arms again. How many more hoops did they expect me to jump through? Didn't they realize that precious time was slipping away with each assessment and procedural delay, further deepening our chasm? My solicitor echoed my plea for urgency, urging them to embrace compassion over the procedure. Yet, as I scanned the barrister's notes, I couldn't help but notice how the need for compromise once again overshadowed the pursuit of truth. The dream of unsupervised visits dissolved as we mechanically nodded through their prescribed motions. The following court order granted me nothing more than cold, pixelated video calls, a stark reminder of the vast physical distance that separated me from my son's touch. The anguish within me welled up as this forced distance was normalized, and my voice was once again boxed out and labeled as obstructive. Each day apart from my child only further solidified the false narrative they had constructed around me, painting me as dangerous and unfit to be a father without constant oversight. In that moment, faith wavered, its light flickering in the face of an unbending, grinding machine. It felt as though my voice was growing dim within the shadow of their indifference. But then, amidst the despair, a spark ignited within me. I remembered that even the tiniest spark can ignite a flame. I would rekindle hope within my soul and tirelessly stoke it with the kindling of love. My voice, though softly spoken, would persistently chip away at their hardened soil, opening hearts and minds to the truth that had been obscured for far too long. And one day, my son would come to know and feel deep within his heart that he was cherished and loved beyond measure, even during the darkest days of our separation. 7.6. Pushing forward. The arrival of the child guardian's application filled me with apprehension and weariness. Its clinical language and sterile paragraphs attempted to tidy away the depth of my distress, reducing it to a mere formality, as if more assessments and hearings could magically mend the shattered bond between my son and me. The notice compelled my return to the familiar halls of the courthouse, where whispered truth seemed to echo in perpetuity. I dreaded stepping back into that sterile room, where my voice had often felt suffocated by the weight of the proceedings. Yet a flicker of hope persisted, whispering that this time might bring a different outcome. As documents for the bundle were being prepared, I reflected on the journey that had led me here. Every report, every evaluation of my flaws seemed like fragments of a shattered mirror reflecting distorted images of myself. I yearned to piece together the fragments and reclaim my true reflection. I knew that my story lay not in the polished surface, but in the raw, vulnerable spaces between the lines. In those gaps, my light patiently waited to be let in, illuminating our shared humanity and bridging the divide that had grown between us. With renewed determination, I prepared to step into that courtroom again, listening keenly for the spaces that longed to be filled. I was ready to sweep away the heavy assumptions that weighed me down just as Autumn leaves were cleared to make space for new growth. I would plant seeds of understanding and empathy, nurturing the connections that time could build if we allowed it. My voice would be a gentle yet persistent gardener, tending to the fragile growth of reconciliation until we were reunited again. 7.7, inching closer. As I delved into the case summary, each word etched another line in the saga of our Sisyphean journey. The pages chronicled the relentless rotation of this bureaucratic wheel, revealing the countless futile turns that had led us to this point. Time slipped through my fingers like grains of sand, each one a precious day with my son that I could never regain. My barrister's email arrived, delivering the sober summary of the latest hearing. Compromise had given way to surrender, and the status quo continued its grip. The words held no emotion, only the cold efficiency of a machine relentlessly churning on. Once again, progress crept forward at a glacial pace. The court order mandated more procedures and hoops to jump through while my son grew up in my absence. Despair and anger entwined within me, threatening to overwhelm the remaining flickering flame of hope. But I checked myself, aware that darkness cannot drive out darkness. If cynicism were to harden my heart, then fear would triumph. I had to nurture the delicate flame within me, for the beacon guided me through this system's cold and sterile corridors. I took a deep breath, centering myself once again. I closed my eyes and conjured my son's face in my mind, allowing his radiant light to pierce through the darkness that threatened to engulf me. In his innocent eyes, I found the strength to persevere. Even if this machinery could not comprehend the depths of a father's love, I held on to my unwavering faith. The road ahead remained long and arduous, but I knew that truth had a way of wearing down even the staunchest resistance. With each step, my voice would echo through the hollow chambers of the system, breaking down barriers and eroding the walls of indifference. I would be the steady force that washed away the rust, oiled the gears and kept them turning, inch by agonizing inch, toward the path of justice. Patience became my ally as I carried the weight of hope. I knew that as long as I remained resolute, my voice would continue to reverberate, refusing to be silenced until the day when my beloved child would be returned to my arms. 7.8 almost there. A sense of accomplishment washed over me as I held my assertiveness skills. Certificate. It may have been a small stamp of progress in the grand marathon of this battle, but it was a tangible reminder that I was moving forward. Each requirement I crossed off their list brought me marginally closer to my goal, being reunited with my beloved son. I etched the memory of each laborious step into my mind, knowing that these were the building blocks of resilience that would fuel me on this arduous journey. Reading my ex's statement, I detected a subtle shift in her surrender to contact, though it remained tempered by lingering ambivalence. Her words echoed the delicate balance we had yet to strike, but I held on to the hope that we would rediscover our capacity for grace as time passed and wounds healed. It was my fervent prayer that this tension between us would continue to ease, paving the way for a more harmonious coexistence that prioritized the well-being of our child. Hope surged within me as I read the Guardian's statement endorsing contact. A glimmer of recognition and a ray of light filled my heart. Yet, I couldn't help but feel disappointment as it came with its conditions, keeping our reunification on a tight leash. Their lingering apprehensions and perceived risks still cast a shadow over the love I knew waited between us. But I refused to be disheartened. I knew that love would conquer all obstacles if given the chance to flourish. In the barrister's notes, I detected a glimmer of relief that the end of this bureaucratic odyssey was nearing. We were all yearning for respite from this factory of flawed assumptions and misjudgments. We had all been caught in the clutches of a system that imposed its lens of mistrust upon us, filtering our connection through a distorted prism. But my boy deserved more than that. He deserved the opportunity to judge me on his terms, free from preconceived notions and biases. Finally, the resulting court order granted specifics, the when, the where, and then how long. It delineated the parameters of our contact, mapping out the path that would bring us closer together. Each detail was a cause for celebration, representing another incremental closeness, another triumph in the face of adversity. No matter how small these steps may seem to the outside world, they stirred a flame of faith within me. I knew the truth would prevail if I continued to put one foot in front of the other, guided by love and unwavering determination. So, I resolved to stay the course and persevere through the remaining obstacles and uncertainties. The road ahead might still be long and winding, but I had come too far to turn back. With each step, I carried the torch of hope, knowing that it would light the way and illuminate the path toward our reunion. I would continue to push forward, fueled by the unyielding belief that the truth would ultimately triumph over injustice. Chapter 8, 2022. A fragile dawn. As 2022 unfolded, I navigated a landscape of hope and hesitation. Completing the Triple P Positive Parenting Program marked a significant milestone, equipping me with valuable tools and renewing my commitment to being the best father I could be. When the Family Court Advisor's recommendations arrived, I experienced a whirlwind of emotions. The gradual plan for increasing my time with my son felt like both a lifeline and a constraint. Each proposed visit, each incremental increase in contact, distill our complex relationship into rigid time slots. Part of me longed to shout that no timetable could genuinely mend a broken bond or capture the depths of a father's love. Yet, I recognized the importance of tempering my frustration. Faith became my guiding light through this impersonal maze. If I rejected their olive branch, we might remain forever estranged. So, with a heavy heart, I resolved to walk their prescribed path with grace, clinging to the flickering ember of hope within me. Preparing my position statement for the court was an exercise in restraint and diplomacy. I acknowledged the need for supervised visits as a starting point while advocating for a balance based on mutual trust and care. My sole desire was to reconnect with my son, to rebuild what had been severed by this fiery trial we had endured. The court hearing itself brought unexpected challenges. To my dismay, the child guardian's initial recommendations were portrayed as an error, significantly reducing the proposed time with my son. This sudden reversal left me reeling, struggling to understand how such a fundamental aspect of the report could be easily dismissed. Adding to my disadvantage was that I had to represent myself in the hearing, unable to qualify for legal aid. Standing alone against a tide of opposition, I acutely felt the weight of the imbalance. The scrutiny of my compliance with various recitals and requirements seemed disproportionate, especially when similar attention wasn't given to the other party. The resulting court order granted me increasing contact, a glimmer of progress amidst lingering doubts. The transition from mere hours to overnights offered a testament to the belief that doubts would fade as we spent more time together, and the depth of my love for my son would become undeniable. I clung to the hope that my boy would come to know me again through this gradual integration. However, the denial of equal shared care stung deeply. Given the unchanged behavior I had witnessed throughout the proceedings, the judge's optimism about amicable co-parenting felt misplaced. Yet, I had to accept what was offered and remain, steadfast in my commitment to fostering a healthy relationship with my child. A small consolation came in the form of a recital added by the judge, acknowledging my frustration and foreseeing a review of the arrangements in July 2022, just before my son started school. This potential for review recognized that his transition to full-time school would be a sensible time to consider upgrading our arrangement. This glimmer of hope served as my solace, a reminder that progress was not linear and that as circumstances evolved, so too could our relationship. However, the daunting road ahead loomed large, knowing that my ex would likely continue obstructing my efforts when that time came. As I left the courtroom, the weight of the journey settled upon me. I had learned to temper my righteous anger with patience and to meet callousness with empathy. I had shifted from fighting against the churning machine to becoming a careful listener, finding opportunities to build something new in the quiet spaces between each rigid word. Standing on the precipice of this new dawn, I marveled at how the process had shaped me. By repeatedly turning the key to love, I learned to open closed minds, even if only by a sliver. Once buried and unheard, my voice was finally given space to resonate. As I looked towards July 2022, I knew that significant developments awaited. The road ahead remained uncertain, fraught with potential obstacles and the lingering fear that my ex would continue obstructing my efforts. Yet I held on to the hope that as my son and I spent more time together, the truth of our bond would become undeniable as he came to know me again. The door had cracked open to a life reckoning, and our family was made whole. We would walk through it together, hand in hand, hearts entwined, ready to embrace the possibilities ahead. When truth is spoken with love, no barrier can withstand its power. Light always finds a way in, illuminating the path toward healing, understanding, and the reunification we ardently sought. The chapters of our story were far from concluded. As summer approached, I steeled myself for the challenges and opportunities that awaited, knowing that each step forward, no matter how small, brought us closer to the relationship we both deserved. 8.1 Seeking a fair path forward. As 2022 continued to unfold, I found myself again navigating the complex and disheartening terrain of family court proceedings. The journey to secure more time with my son continued to be an uphill battle, fraught with obstacles and emotional turmoil. The court order from our previous proceedings included a provision to reassess childcare arrangements in July 2022. This glimmer of hope sustained me through countless sleepless nights and anxiety-ridden days. I clung to the belief that this time the system would recognize the importance of a father's presence in a child's life. My proposal was simple yet profound, a gradual transition to a week-on, week-off arrangement, aligning with my son's school schedule. This wasn't just about my desire to be more present in his life. It was about creating stability, fostering more robust bonds with his paternal family, and ensuring his emotional well-being. With its midweek transitions, the current arrangement disrupted my son's school routine. It pained me to see him struggle with these constant shifts, knowing that a more consistent schedule could provide the needed stability. Moreover, my limited time with him meant that his relationships with his paternal grandparents and extended family were increasingly strained. Financial considerations also weighed heavily on my mind. As a single parent working part-time to accommodate the current custody arrangement, I found myself in an increasingly precarious economic situation. The proposed schedule would allow for a more equitable distribution of childcare responsibilities and create a foundation of financial stability for both households. Despite my proposal's logic and potential benefits, I continually needed more support. The frustration of being denied a whole week with my son regularly while being granted this during school holidays seemed to defy reason. It felt that convenience was driving these decisions rather than my child's best interests. Throughout this process, I grappled with the lingering effects of past trauma. The years of separation from my son had taken their toll, manifesting in panic attacks, physical ailments, and deep emotional scars. Specific triggers, such as a child's laughter or a toy in a shop window, could send me spiraling back into those dark days. The support I received from domestic abuse services was a lifeline during this tumultuous time. They provided emotional support and crucial assistance in navigating the legal aid process. Their recognition of the subtle forms of control and emotional abuse I had experienced validated my feelings and helped me find the strength to continue advocating for my rights as a father. As I prepared my case, meticulously outlining the merits of the proposed arrangement, I couldn't help but reflect on the broader implications of my struggle. It wasn't just about me or my son anymore. It was about challenging a system that often seemed to overlook the vital role of fathers in children's lives. Compounding the challenge was the advice from my solicitor and barristers to withdraw my complaints to the family support services and the police. They counselled me to avoid playing into the narrative that had been twisted to depict my frustration as argumentative and my contact with the police as a form of abuse. It was a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that my genuine concerns were being manipulated to fit a damaging stereotype, but I had to navigate this minefield strategically. The path forward remained uncertain, but I was determined to persist. For every setback, every moment of despair, I reminded myself of the stakes, the precious relationship with my son that I was fighting to nurture and protect. As 2022 progressed, I held on to hope. I hoped the family court system would see the value in my proposal. I expected my son would soon have both parent stability and consistent presence. In sharing my story, I hoped to pave the way for other fathers facing similar battles. The journey was far from over, but with each step, I reaffirmed my commitment to being the father my son deserved, present, involved, and unwavering in my love and dedication. 8.2 A Glimmer of Hope. In September, I found myself once again navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the family court system. For the past few years, I have been on a roller coaster of emotions, filled with triumphs and setbacks in my quest to maintain a meaningful relationship with my young son. The journey had been grueling, with moments of despair that threatened to overwhelm me. Yet, amid the relentless challenges, a new glimmer of hope emerged. I received a letter from my solicitor that kindled a small flame of hope within me. After months of struggling to secure more time with my child, I had been granted legal aid to pursue a variation of the existing child arrangements order. The weight that lifted from my shoulders upon reading those words was immeasurable. For too long, I had felt voiceless in the face of a system that seemed stacked against me. Now, I had a final opportunity to advocate for what I believed was best for my son and our relationship. The solicitor's letter laid out the road ahead, a journey that would be neither quick nor easy. I braced myself for more months of paperwork, court appearances, and emotional strain, but I felt I had a fighting chance for the first time in a long while. This was my opportunity to reshape the narrative, to demonstrate my unwavering commitment to my son's well-being, and to challenge the system that had often overlooked the vital role of fathers in their children's lives. As I pored over the details of the legal process, my mind wandered to all the milestones and moments I had missed in my son's life. Birthday parties I wasn't invited to. On the first days of the nursery where I couldn't be there to offer a reassuring hug, Christmases that felt hollow without his laughter filling my home. These moments fueled my determination to press on, no matter how daunting the legal mountain might seem. Each missed moment was a painful reminder of what was at stake, and it steeled my resolve to fight for a fairer arrangement. The solicitor's words about the welfare checklist resonated deeply with me. Throughout this arduous journey, I had always tried to keep my son's best interests at the forefront of my mind. Even in my darkest moments of frustration with the system, I reminded myself that this wasn't about winning or losing. It was about ensuring my child had the love and support of both his parents. The welfare checklist provided a framework through which I could articulate my concerns and aspirations for my son's future, and it became the cornerstone of my case. As I filled out the necessary forms to move forward with my case, I reflected on how much had changed since those tumultuous days after the separation. The raw anger and hurt had gradually given way to a steely resolve. I was no longer fighting against my past but for my future, and, more importantly, my son's future. The journey transformed me, teaching me patience, resilience, and the importance of staying true to my values despite the obstacles. I knew the path ahead would be challenging. The legal system moves at its own glacial pace, heedless of the precious childhood moments slipping away in the interim. But I felt a sense of agency for the first time in years. I had a voice and intended to use it, not cast blame or seek retribution, but to advocate for the relationship I knew my son and I deserved. The thought of finally being able to present my case filled me with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. As I completed my forms, I said a silent prayer, not for victory in the legal sense, but for wisdom and compassion to prevail. For all parties involved to see past their hurts and grievances to what truly mattered, the well-being of an innocent child caught in the middle of adult conflicts. I hoped the court would recognize the profound bond between a father and his son and make decisions that reflected my child's best interests. The year was ending, but a new chapter was beginning. Whatever the outcome, I vowed to walk this path with dignity and grace for my son's sake and my own. The glimmer of hope that had been kindled within me reminded me that there is always a chance for change, growth, and healing, even in the face of adversity. I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the knowledge that my fight was not just for me, but for my son's future and the countless other fathers who found themselves in similar battles. 8.3. Navigating silence in a sea of accusations. In October, the familiar corridors echoed with the weight of past experiences, each step a reminder of battles fought and silence endured. This chapter of my life was not just about seeking more time with my child. It was a testament to the paradoxical nature of the system I was navigating. The year began with hope for progress, understanding, and a chance to be more present in my child's life. I diligently followed the advice given to me: avoid conflict, prioritize the child's well-being, and communicate respectfully. These principles had become my mantra, guiding every interaction and decision. Yet as the months passed, I began questioning whether this approach served its intended purpose. During a pivotal interview with a family court professional, I poured out my heart, sharing details of our current arrangements, my proposals for gradual changes, and my concerns about my child's well-being. However, when I later reviewed the official report, I was disheartened to find that much of what I had shared had been omitted. The nuances of my situation and the careful reasoning behind my requests all seemed condensed into a few brief paragraphs that failed to capture the whole picture. This selective reporting left me at a disadvantage as I entered the courtroom. I found myself in a perplexing situation where my adherence to professional advice, to avoid conflict and focus on positive co-parenting, seemed to work against me. Accusations were made, their veracity unchallenged. While my measured responses and attempts at cooperation were met with skepticism, the court's apparent preference for dramatic narratives over quiet cooperation was a bitter pill. I couldn't help but feel that my silence, maintained out of respect for the process and concern for my child, was being misinterpreted as indifference, or even guilt. The very system that had advised me to take the high road now seemed to view that road with suspicion. As the proceedings continued, I grappled with a growing sense of frustration. The inconsistency was glaring. How could avoiding conflict be in my child's best interest if it simultaneously undermined my position in court? The advice I had so carefully followed now felt like a double-edged sword, cutting away at the relationship I was trying to nurture and protect. Despite these challenges, I remained committed to my path. I continued to save diligently for my child's future, maintained my child support payments despite financial hardship, and pursued personal growth through work and education. These efforts, however, seemed to fade into the background, overshadowed by the louder, more contentious aspects of our case. The support I received from domestic abuse services during this time was a lifeline. They provided a space where I could voice my experiences of emotional manipulation and control, even as these subtler forms of abuse struggled to find recognition in the courtroom. Their understanding of the complex dynamics at play validated my experiences and gave me the strength to continue advocating for myself and my child. As the year progressed, I was caught in a cycle of proposal and rejection. Each attempt to negotiate a more balanced arrangement was met with resistance, pushing me back into the court system I desperately tried to avoid. The irony was not lost on me. My efforts to cooperate and avoid conflict were repeatedly interpreted as attempts to control or manipulate the situation. Throughout this challenging period, I held on to one guiding principle: the well-being of my child. Every decision, every silent moment, every careful word was chosen with their best interests at heart. Yet, as I watched the proceedings unfold, I couldn't help but question whether the system truly understood those best interests. As the year drew closer to an end, I found myself reflecting on the nature of justice in family courts. The experience taught me that silence, while sometimes necessary, comes at a cost. It has shown me that the path of least resistance is only sometimes, not the path to truth or fairness. Most importantly, it reinforced my belief in the need for a system that genuinely listens to the loudest voices and the quiet, consistent actions of parents who are simply trying to do right by their children. Ultimately, this chapter of my journey was not just about seeking more time with my child. It was about finding my voice in a system designed to silence it. It was about maintaining integrity despite misinterpretation and holding hope even when the odds seemed stacked against me. As I looked toward the future, I knew that the fight was far from over, but I was more determined than ever to ensure that my voice and my child's voice would not be buried beneath the weight of a flawed system. 8.4 Echoes in the Halls of Justice. As 2022 ended, I once again stood in the austere halls of the family court. The weight of the latest court order pressed heavily in my hands, its crisp pages starkly contrasting the messy reality of co-parenting. This document, born from hours of deliberation and legal maneuvering, attempted to codify the most precious aspect of my life, my relationship with my son. The proceedings had been a whirlwind of emotions. Each decision and compromise felt like a small battle in a larger war, not against any individual, but against a system that seemed ill-equipped to truly understand the nuances of family life. As I read through the order, I couldn't help but reflect on how we had arrived at this point, where the love and care for a child had to be parceled out in legal terms. One small victory emerged from the day, an agreement to use a parenting app for future communications. It felt like a step towards more structured, less emotionally charged interactions. Perhaps this digital buffer would allow us to focus on our child's needs without getting caught up in personal conflicts. I clung to this hope, however small it might be. Transferring the case to a court closer to home brought a sense of relief. It was a practical decision that acknowledged the realities of our lives and locations. This might be a sign of more reasonable compromises. However, the inability to reach a complete agreement during the hearing was a stark reminder of the challenges ahead. The court's decision to schedule a final hearing felt like both a setback and a final opportunity. On one hand, it meant more uncertainty and more legal processes. On the other, it was a chance to have my voice heard and to advocate for what I believed was best for my child. The order to attend a co-parenting course stirred mixed emotions. While I welcomed any opportunity to improve my parenting skills, I couldn't shake the feeling of being treated as deficient and needing to prove my worth as a father. Nevertheless, I committed to approaching the course with an open mind, hoping it might provide better communication and cooperation tools. As I reflected on the court's declarations and directions, the legal jargon felt at odds with the simple truth of my situation. I was a father who wanted to be present in his son's life. The order's requirements for witness statements, limited to a few pages, seemed an impossibly small space to contain the depth of my feelings and intentions. The final hearing loomed on the horizon, scheduled for the new year. It felt like my entire relationship with my child would be dissected and judged in those hours. The weight of that impending day pressed heavily on my thoughts. As 2022 drew to a close, I found myself at a crossroads. In my hands, the court order represented both an end and a beginning. It was the end of one phase of uncertainty, but the beginning of a new chapter in my journey as a father. The legal system had spoken, laying a path forward, but I knew the real work, the day-to-day effort of being a present and loving father, lay ahead. I took the court order away, its official language a poor substitute for the warmth of my son's laugh or the joy of our time together. I made a silent promise to my child and myself as I approached the new year. Regardless of court orders and legal proceedings, I would continue to fight for my role in his life, to be the father he deserved. The road ahead might be challenging, but my commitment remained unshakable. In the quiet of that moment, I felt the weight of my voice, buried beneath legal jargon, court proceedings, and the complexities of co-parenting. Yet I refused to let it be silenced, for in that voice lay the love of a father, the dreams for his child's future, and the unwavering determination to remain a constant positive presence in his life. The journey ahead was uncertain, but my resolve was clear. My voice, though sometimes buried, would never be truly silenced. Chapter 9, 2023, Unheard Echoes. As 2023 began, the weight of unresolved issues from the previous year pressed heavily upon me. The written statement of evidence I had prepared with such care now felt like a silent scream, lost in the din of legal proceedings and conflicting parental views. Each sentence I had meticulously crafted seemed to vanish into the abyss of the family court system, where voices like mine often went unheard. The Planning Together for Children certificate hung on my wall, a bittersweet reminder of my commitment to co-parenting. I completed the course with genuine enthusiasm, hoping it would pave the way for better communication and understanding. The course was enlightening and filled with valuable insights into the importance of cooperative parenting. Yet as weeks passed, I found myself questioning its impact. The dashboard showed no progress from the other side, leaving me to wonder if I was the only one truly invested in this journey of cooperative parenting. Once a symbol of hope, the certificate felt like a hollow achievement in the face of persistent discord. The Family Support Service's farewell letter sat on my desk, marking the end of their involvement. Their departure left a void, and I couldn't help but feel more alone than ever in navigating the complexities of our family situation. Though often a source of frustration, their presence was also a guiding force, providing structure and a semblance of fairness in an otherwise chaotic process. Without their oversight, I felt adrift, my concerns and hopes for my son's future echoing in a vacuum. As spring arrived, new challenges emerged. The issue of pull-ups became an unexpected battlefield. What should have been a simple matter of childcare became a source of conflict and miscommunication. I found myself constantly reassuring my son, trying to shield him from adult disagreements while maintaining consistency in my parenting approach. Each misunderstanding about something as trivial as bedtime routines or dietary preferences was blown out of proportion, creating an environment fraught with tension. There were moments when I felt gaslighted and my parenting skills questioned despite evidence to the contrary. The joy of seeing my son's progress with me was overshadowed by accusations and doubts planted in his young mind. It pained me to hear him parrot phrases that originated from adult conversations, his innocence tainted by the complexities of our situation. His young mind, so impressionable and eager to please, was caught in the crossfire of adult conflict, and each accusation felt like a direct attack on my love and dedication as a father. The concept of parental alienation loomed large in my thoughts. I grappled with the fear that my relationship with my son was being subtly undermined and that seeds of doubt were planted in his young mind. Each visit began with a need to reconnect, reassure, and rebuild the bond that seemed to fray in my absence. The emotional whiplash of these reunions and the constant effort to reaffirm my role in his life took a toll on both of us. Throughout these challenges, I held on to hope that my voice would eventually be heard and that my role as a father would be recognized and respected. I dreamed of a future where decisions about my son's life would genuinely reflect his best interests and where both parents' voices would be equally valued. The disparity in how our concerns were addressed in court weighed heavily on me, but I refused to let it dampen my resolve. As the year progressed, I found myself increasingly wondering about the future. At what age would my son's voice honestly be heard in these matters? How could I ensure that his needs and wishes were at every decision? The thought of him growing older, more aware of the tensions between his parents, filled me with dread and determination. I knew I had to fight not just for my right to be in his life, but for his right to have a stable, loving relationship with both parents. Despite the setbacks and frustrations, my commitment to being an involved, loving father never wavered. Each obstacle strengthened my resolve to remain a constant positive presence in my son's life. I continued to document everything and advocate for what I believed was right, while trying to shield my son from the adult complexities surrounding him. My journals became a repository of our shared moments, a testament to the love and care that defined our time together. In quiet moments, I reflected on this chapter in my life. Yet even as I felt silenced by legal proceedings and conflicting narratives, I refused to let my voice as a father be genuinely buried. In every interaction with my son and every decision I made for his well-being, my voice rang clear, a voice of love, dedication, and unwavering commitment. Though often unnoticed by the court, the silent echoes of my efforts reverberated in the bond I shared with my son. As 2023 continued to unfold, I held on to the hope that the echoes of injustice I felt would someday fade. I dreamed of a future filled with the sound of laughter, of unencumbered fatherhood, of a family dynamic that genuinely put our child's needs first. The road ahead might be long and winding, but my resolve remained firm. Ultimately, I hoped this dedication, rather than any legal document or court decision, would define my relationship with my son and shape his future. The journey was far from over, but I walked it knowing that my love for my son was an unwavering beacon. Each step and sacrifice was a testament to my unyielding commitment to his happiness and well-being. The halls of justice might echo with the unheard cries of many, but in my heart, my voice remained steadfast and true, carrying the hope of a brighter tomorrow for both of us. 9.1. The final hearing. As I walked into the courthouse on that sweltering May 2023, a sense of weary resignation washed over me. After years of legal battles, today would mark the end of this chapter, for better or worse. I had long since grown accustomed to the cold, sterile environment of the courtroom, where the walls seemed to echo with the stories of countless families torn apart by similar struggles. Today, however, felt different. There was a finality in the air, a sense that whatever happened here would shape the future of my relationship with my son in ways I couldn't fully comprehend. The pre-hearing discussions dragged on, a blur of legal jargon and tense negotiations. My barrister and I had gone over our strategy countless times, but the nerves still churned in my stomach. As always, I struggled to make my voice heard amidst the din. How could I convey the depths of my love for my child, my dreams for our future together, in the sterile language of custody agreements and visitation schedules? The legal system's demand for brevity and clarity seemed at odds with the messy, heartfelt reality of parenting. When we finally entered the courtroom, I felt a familiar tightness in my chest. The judge's gaze swept over us impassively as the lawyers made their final arguments. The cold, detached nature of the proceedings felt surreal. Here we were, discussing the fate of my child in a manner that stripped away the warmth, the laughter, and the deep bond we shared, reducing it to a series of bullet points and percentages. I listened as my relationship with my child was reduced to bullet points and percentages. My lawyer spoke passionately on my behalf, but it was hard to shake the feeling that the true essence of my plea was lost in translation. Each argument and rebuttal felt like a clinical dissection of something profoundly personal and sacred. Ultimately, the ruling came down somewhere in the middle, not everything I had hoped for, but not my worst fears realized. The judge's decision was a compromise, a careful balancing act to serve my child's best interests. A part of me wanted to protest to argue my case further. But a more significant part was relieved it was over. The endless cycle of court dates and legal battles had taken a toll, and the prospect of moving forward, even with a partial victory, was a welcome relief. As I left the courthouse, legal documents in hand, I was struck by a profound sense of loss, not just for the time with my child that had been denied, but for my faith in a system I once believed would protect families, not tear them apart. The idealism that had fueled my early efforts had been eroded by years of bureaucratic indifference and adversarial posturing. How had it come to this? Endless court dates, accusations and counter-accusations, consumed years of my life and my child. Thousands of pounds in lawyers and court fees. The constant stress is taking its toll on my health, career, and sense of self. I had entered this process hoping for a fair resolution, but had emerged feeling battered and bruised by a system that seemed to care little for the human beings caught in its gears. I thought back to the romantic young man I had once been, so sure of my place in the world and my child's life. That man seemed a stranger to me now. In his place stood someone more weary, cynical, and more determined than ever to be the parent my child deserved. The past year's experiences had hardened me, but they had also clarified my purpose. My resolve to be a constant, loving presence in my child's life had never been stronger. As I walked home, my mind drifted to the future. The court case was over, but the real work was beginning. How could I make the most of my limited time with my child? How could I shield him from the bitterness and resentment that threatened to poison everything? How could I rebuild my life while still being the stable, loving presence my child needed? These questions weighed heavily on my mind, each a reminder of our ongoing challenges. I had no easy answers, but as I pictured my child's face, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This fight had changed me, but it hadn't broken me. I would find a way forward for both of us. And maybe, someday when my child was older, I could explain why I had fought so hard for so long, not out of anger or selfishness, but out of love. Our journey was driven by a profound desire to ensure that my child knew he was loved and valued, regardless of the circumstances. For now, I could only take it one day at a time, to cherish every moment we had together, to be the best father I could be, regardless of court orders or custody schedules. The system may have buried my voice, but my love for my child would never be silenced. Each visit, each shared experience was a precious opportunity to strengthen our bond and create lasting memories. Walking the familiar streets back to my home, I made a silent vow. I would continue to fight for my son's happiness and well-being. I would rise above the bitterness and focus on building a future filled with love and laughter. The legal battles had been grueling, but they had also reinforced my commitment to my child. Together, we would navigate the challenges ahead, guided by the unwavering light of a father's love. The final hearing marked the end of one chapter, but it was far from the end of our story. The echoes of that day in court would linger, but they would not define us. In the quiet moments of reflection and the joyful moments of connection, I found the strength to keep going. Our journey was far from over, but with each step, I grew more. Confident in our ability to face whatever lay ahead. Though often buried, my voice would always find a way to be heard through my enduring love for my son. Chapter 10. Potential Theses. Reform is desperately needed to contribute to a more just and compassionate family justice system. The current system, which often serves only a small select group of parents, must evolve beyond its money. Driven motives to better serve all families. I dedicate this final chapter to presenting a series of potential theses. These topics deserve further research, exploration, and new insights. By sharing my experiences and these ideas, I hope to inspire those who can bring about positive changes and advancements in the family justice system, contributing to a better world. Systemic and psychological impact. Theses. 1. The impact of systemic bias in family courts. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the impact of systemic bias in family courts. To test this thesis, you could analyze case outcomes where fathers and mothers have similar circumstances but different custody results. Statistical analysis and qualitative interviews with legal professionals and affected parents can reveal patterns of bias. 2. Psychological effects of parental alienation. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the psychological effects of parental alienation. To test this thesis, you could conduct longitudinal studies involving psychological assessments of children and alienated parents over time. Surveys and interviews with mental health professionals and families can provide insights into long-term impacts. 3. The psychological impact of parental alienation on non-custodial parents. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the psychological impact of parental alienation on non-custodial parents. To test this thesis, you could survey non-custodial parents about their mental health and well-being and compare these findings with those from custodial parents. Case studies and interviews can further illustrate individual experiences. 4. The long-term psychological effects of parental alienation on both children and targeted parents. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the long-term psychological effects of parental alienation. To test this thesis, you could follow families over several years to assess changes in mental health, emotional well-being, and relationships. Psychological evaluations and interviews can provide comprehensive data. 5. The psychological impact of perceived loss of parental identity through court-imposed restrictions. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the psychological impact of perceived loss of parental identity due to court-imposed restrictions. To test this thesis, you could use psychological assessments and in-depth interviews with parents experiencing such restrictions, comparing their mental health to parents without these restrictions. 6. The emotional toll of prolonged family court proceedings on parents. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the emotional toll of prolonged family court proceedings on parents. To test this thesis, you could conduct surveys and interviews with parents involved in lengthy legal battles, assessing their stress levels, emotional well-being, and coping mechanisms. Communication and relationship. Theses. 7. Communication breakdown in relationships. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the role of communication breakdowns in relationship deterioration. To test this thesis, you could study couples in therapy, tracking their communication patterns and relationship satisfaction before and after interventions. Surveys and observational studies can provide additional data. 8. The impact of social media on modern relationships. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the impact of social media on modern relationships. To test this thesis, you could survey couples' social media usage and its effects on trust and communication. Experimental studies where social media use is temporarily altered could provide further insights. 9. The challenges of maintaining emotional authenticity in company. Parenting while adhering to professional advice for conflict avoidance. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the challenges of maintaining emotional authenticity in co-parenting. To test this thesis, you could interview co-parents about their experiences and strategies for balancing authenticity and conflict avoidance. Observational studies in therapy settings could offer additional perspectives. Legal and custody decision theses. 10. The role of mental health in parenting disputes. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the role of mental health in parenting disputes. To test this thesis, you could analyze custody case outcomes where mental health issues were present. Interviews with mental health professionals and legal experts can provide context and depth. 11. Systemic biases in child custody proceedings. Thesis. This potential thesis explores systemic biases in child custody proceedings. To test this thesis, you could compare custody outcomes across different jurisdictions, examining variables like gender and socioeconomic status. Legal document analysis and interviews with family law practitioners can further validate findings. 12. The role of psychological assessments in custody determinations. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the role of psychological assessments in custody determinations. To test this thesis, you could review case files to analyze how psychological evaluations influence decisions. Interviews with psychologists and judges can provide additional insights into the process. 13. The role of legal representation in shaping custody outcomes. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the role of legal representation in shaping custody outcomes. To test this thesis, you could compare outcomes for parents with varying levels of legal representation. Surveys and interviews with lawyers and parents can help highlight disparities and their impacts. 14. The role of gender bias in family court decisions and its effects on custody arrangements. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the role of gender bias in family court decisions. To test this thesis, you could analyze custody case outcomes for evidence of gender bias. Interviews with legal professionals and affected parents can provide additional qualitative data. 15. Reforming family court processes. Thesis. This potential thesis explores potential reforms in family court processes. To test this thesis, you could conduct pilot studies of proposed reforms, such as mediation programs or collaborative law approaches, and compare their outcomes to traditional court processes. 16. The paradox of silence in family court proceedings. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the paradox of silence in family court proceedings. To test this thesis, you could interview parents who followed professional advice to remain silent, analyzing the impact on their case outcomes. Legal experts can provide additional context. 17. The role of domestic abuse services in supporting fathers in family court cases. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the role of domestic abuse services in supporting fathers. To test this thesis, you could survey fathers who have used these services, assessing their impact on case outcomes and well-being. Interviews with service providers can offer further insights. Socioeconomic and systemic influence theses 18. Socioeconomic factors in custody battles. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the impact of socioeconomic factors in custody battles. To test this thesis, you could analyze case outcomes for parents with different socioeconomic statuses. Surveys and interviews with affected parents and legal professionals can highlight the role of financial disparities. 19. Their financial incentives within the family justice system and their potential influence on case durations and outcomes. Thesis. This potential thesis explores financial incentives within the family justice system. To test this thesis, you could analyze the correlation between legal costs and case durations or outcomes. The interviews with legal professionals and parents can provide additional perspectives on economic influences. 20. Impact of the family justice system on fathers' mental health and well-being. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the impact of the family justice system on fathers' mental health. To test this thesis, you could survey fathers involved in family court cases about their mental health and well-being. The longitudinal studies could track changes over time. 21. The effectiveness of current child protection services. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the effectiveness of current child protection services. To test this thesis, you could review case files to assess how well these services identify and address cases of parental manipulation and emotional abuse. Interviews with child protection workers can provide additional insights. Resilience and coping theses. 22. Resilience and coping mechanisms in high conflict divorces. Thesis. This potential thesis explores resilience and coping mechanisms in high conflict divorces. To test this thesis, you could survey individuals involved in high conflict divorces about their coping strategies and resilience. Psychological assessments can provide additional data. 23. The role of support groups in coping with family court challenges. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the role of support groups in coping with family court challenges. To test this thesis, you could survey participants of support groups about their experiences and outcomes. Comparative studies with non-participants can highlight the benefits of these groups. 24. Resilience and coping strategies in high conflict custody disputes. Thesis. This potential thesis explores resilience and coping strategies in high conflict custody disputes. To test this thesis, you could conduct longitudinal studies tracking psychological well-being and coping strategies over time. Interviews with affected parents can provide additional context. Mediation and support theses. 25. The efficacy of supervised visitation as a tool for family reunification. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the efficacy of supervised visitation for family reunification. To test this thesis, you could analyze outcomes of supervised visitation programs, comparing parent-child relationships before and after participation. Interviews with parents and supervisors can provide qualitative insights. 26. The role of mediation in family court cases and factors influencing its success or failure. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the role of mediation in family court cases. To test this thesis, you could compare outcomes of mediated against non-mediated cases, identifying factors that influence mediation success. Interviews with mediators and participants can provide additional data. 27. The effectiveness of court mandated parenting courses and their impact on company parenting relationships. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the effectiveness of court-mandated parenting courses. To test this thesis, you could survey participants before and after completing the courses, assessing changes in key parenting relationships. Comparative studies with non-participants can highlight the course's impacts. 28. The effectiveness of company parenting. The courses in high conflict separations. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the effectiveness of co-parenting courses in high conflict separations. To test this thesis, you could conduct follow-up surveys and interviews with participants of these courses to evaluate changes in co-parenting behaviors and conflict levels. Comparative analysis with high conflict separations without such interventions can highlight the course's effectiveness. Ethical and legal considerations. Theses. 29. Ethical considerations in child safeguarding procedures. Thesis. This potential thesis explores ethical considerations in child safeguarding procedures. To test this thesis, you could review case studies and legal documents to identify ethical dilemmas child protection workers face. Interviews with professionals in the field can provide insights into how these dilemmas are navigated. 30. Ethical implications of using children's statements in family court proceedings. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the ethical implications of using children's statements in family court. To test this thesis, you could analyze case outcomes where children's statements were pivotal and compare them with cases without use. Interviews with legal professionals and child psychologists can illuminate the ethical challenges. Long-term impact theses. 31. The long-term effects of high conflict divorces on children. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the long-term effects of high conflict divorces on children. To test this thesis, you could conduct longitudinal studies tracking children's psychological, emotional, and social development over several years. Interviews with parents, teachers, and children can provide comprehensive data. 32. The long-term effects of false accusations in custody disputes. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the long-term effects of false accusations in custody disputes. To test this thesis, you could follow individuals falsely accused over time to assess impacts on their personal, professional, and social lives. Legal document analysis and interviews with the accused can provide further insights. 33. The impact of prolonged legal battles on company parenting relationships. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the impact of prolonged legal battles on co-parenting relationships. To test this thesis, you could survey parents involved in extended court proceedings about their co-parenting dynamics and relationship quality. Comparative studies with parents who resolved disputes quickly can highlight the effects of prolonged legal battles. 34. The effects of prolonged legal battles on a parent's ability to provide and protect their children. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the effects of prolonged legal battles on a parent's ability to provide and protect their children. To test this thesis, you could analyze case outcomes and interview parents involved in long-term disputes, focusing on their financial, emotional, and physical ability to care for their children. 35. The impact of gradual contact arrangements on parent-child relationships. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the impact of gradual contact arrangements on parent-child relationships. To test this thesis, you could conduct follow-up studies with families involved in gradual contact arrangements, assessing relationship quality and emotional bonds over time. Comparative studies with families without such arrangements can highlight their effectiveness. Relationships with non-custodial parents. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the relationship between court-ordered contact arrangements and children's long-term relationships with non-custodial parents. To test this thesis, you could track families with various contact arrangements and assess the quality of parent-child relationships over the years. Surveys and interviews with both children and parents can provide detailed data. Technology and innovation theses. 37. The impact of social media and digital communication on family, court cases, and company parenting relationships. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the impact of social media and digital communication on family court cases and co-parenting relationships. To test this thesis, you could survey families using digital communication tools and social media, analyzing the effects on conflict resolution and relationship quality. Case studies and interviews can provide additional insights. 38. The evolution of co-parenting in the digital age. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the evolution of co-parenting in the digital age. To test this thesis, you could analyze the usage of digital co-parenting tools and apps, surveying users about their experiences and outcomes. Comparative studies with traditional co-parenting methods can highlight the benefits and challenges of digital tools. 39. Integration of AI in family court proceedings, revolutionizing justice or dehumanizing families. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the integration of AI in family court proceedings. To test this thesis, you could use AI tools to analyze pilot projects or case studies, assessing their impact on decision-making and case outcomes. Interviews with legal professionals and affected families can provide insights into the benefits and ethical considerations. Miscellaneous theses. 40. The role of documentation and record-keeping in family court proceedings. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the role of documentation and record-keeping in family court proceedings. To test this thesis, you could analyze case outcomes where thorough documentation played a crucial role, comparing them with cases lacking comprehensive records. Interviews with legal professionals can provide further insights into best practices. 41. Balancing legal advocacy and child-centric approaches in family court. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the balance between legal advocacy and child-centric approaches in family court. To test this thesis, you could review case studies using different methods, analyzing the impact on case outcomes and child well-being. Interviews with legal professionals and child advocates can provide additional perspectives. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the challenges and strategies of navigating post-court parenting. To test this thesis, you could survey parents' experiences implementing court-ordered parenting arrangements, identifying common challenges and effective methods. Comparative studies with families using alternative arrangements can provide further insights. 43. The role of personal growth and education in family court outcomes. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the role of personal growth and education in family court outcomes. To test this thesis, you could analyze case outcomes for parents who pursued personal development or educational opportunities during the proceedings, comparing them with those who did not. Interviews with legal professionals can highlight the influence of these factors. 44. The challenges of self-representation in family court cases. Thesis. This potential thesis explores the challenges of self-representation in family court cases. To test this thesis, you could survey self-represented litigants about their experiences and outcomes, identifying common challenges and strategies for success. Comparative studies with represented litigants can highlight the differences. 45. The impact of family court decisions on father-child relationships. The thesis. This potential thesis explores the impact of family court decisions on father-child relationships. To test this thesis, you could conduct longitudinal studies tracking the quality of father-child relationships before and after court decisions. Surveys and interviews with fathers and children can provide comprehensive data on the impacts. Epilogue. As I close this memoir chapter, I reflect on the journey with profound relief and cautious optimism. The trials and tribulations that have shaped my path have tested my resolve and reaffirmed my belief in the transformative power of love and the indomitable strength of the human spirit. The battles fought and the voices heard have illuminated the way forward, even as they have left scars that will forever remind me of the struggle. The legal battles, the conflicts, and the emotional turmoil were not just obstacles but crucibles through which my character was forged. However arduous, each step was a testament to the unyielding hope that guided me, a hope rooted in the desire to be a steadfast presence in my child's life and seek justice in an often indifferent world. The lessons learned along this journey have reshaped my understanding of resilience and the importance of standing firm in adversity. Looking ahead, I carry with me the insights gained and the strength acquired from navigating this tumultuous odyssey. The story that has unfolded within these pages is not merely one of personal struggle, but also a call to action for systemic reform and greater empathy within the justice system. It is a reminder that behind every case, legal battle, and challenge are real lives and emotions that demand recognition and respect. As I move forward, I am guided by the lessons of persistence and the unwavering belief that truth, love, and integrity can prevail. The road ahead remains uncertain, but with the support of those who have stood by me and the enduring hope that has been my constant companion, I am ready to embrace the future with renewed strength. The journey continues, and with it comes the promise of new beginnings and the opportunity to forge a path defined by hope, healing, and a deep, abiding love for my child. This epilogue is not an end, but a bridge to the future, a testament to the resilience that has brought me here and the enduring spirit that will carry me forward.